So the question you're asking essentially is, what is she going to sacrifice of these demands? Or what, more precisely, will she feel she has to sacrifice among these things? And here I'm just guessing. As an observer, you can make the same judge as I do. I feel I'm as much an outside observer as anyone else. I feel that she thinks that she cannot get away without pretty credible controls on immigration, however stupid, and they are stupid. And don't need them. And I think she feels she cannot get away with a situation in which the European Court of Justice, which means EU law, continues to play the same role as it did before. It follows, it seems to me, if you believe those two things, that whatever she wants, the city will no longer be inside the European single market. Finished.
At the end of the day, you will not be in a better position than before. Otherwise, it would mean that the existing member states like the Netherlands or Scandinavian countries or Eastern European countries would be in a worse situation than before. And this is why the Chancellor has explained in our parliament there will be no cherry picking exercises, but everybody is prepared for constructive arrangements and for constructive efforts to limit the damage that perhaps cannot be excluded to 100%.
A deal with the UK which doesn't look nice to have would be something that makes sense from the EU and in particular Brussels perspective. But then on the other hand, if we look at the strategic context that Europe is in, if we just pick up again the issue of the US elections and the questions we have vis-à-vis one of our main strategic allies, the United States, I think if we look at that dimension, if we look at the globally changed security environment, new challenges arising by the day and the extent of uncertainty that we are facing in this world out there, if we look at it from that perspective, of course, a very constructive and close relationship with the UK post-Brexit becomes something we are thriving for. This applies in defense and security terms, but to some extent, as we've discussed earlier, it also applies in economic terms because the objective is to limit the negative effects on both sides.
And I think for us it's very important that we continue with what is called the Bratislava process, the 27 countries that try to find a new way of dealing not only with a Brexit, but also a positive agenda. It's also about establishing new activities within the EU, a new way of working together, and making sure that we have, in the end, after all the negotiations that are still unclear when they're going to happen, but we hope they're going to happen soon, and in the end we would have preferably a result that is good for the Netherlands, that is good for Europe, and that's good for the UK as well.
The political weight and the political influence of the United Kingdom has been never as big as they have been over the last 4 or 5 years. And this is something that is, unfortunately, that has not been understood by my political colleagues not dealing with European and foreign affairs. We had a complete silence between the two camps in the UK, and therefore, for Germany, I draw a conclusion, and my conclusion is that we have to give a higher priority to issues of European cooperation, of foreign and security policy on the political agenda, because the sake of our country, as I see it, largely depends on our integration in European and international structures, and therefore our MPs have to understand the enormous importance of this in modern times, and therefore we have to reward politicians who are ready to serve in the Foreign Affairs Committee, European Affairs Committee, etc., to make it more attractive to deal with this international affairs.
At the end of all this, because we've made a terrible mistake, and it will weaken Europe, Britain is one of the great European nations. As I pointed out, it has always been a European country. It couldn't be anything else but a European country. Just think who's lived in Britain and the contributions Britain has made to Europe. And the same, of course, it's unthinkable without Europe. So this separation is a tragedy. What we have to find is a way of making the economic relationship, I know I'm not really answering your question, but I'm answering the question I feel you should have asked. So, what I believe separation economically is underway, and it will be very costly. We do have to find a way, and I think this is desperately important for Britain, but I think it's also desperately important for Europe, to bind the West as a system of ideas and values, but also a geopolitical structure together. And I do think it is incredibly important at the end of this next 2 years of mess and anger and frustration that we have found a way to do this that doesn't cause a permanent wedge. And I am very fearful that that is what is going to happen. So I'd just like to say at the end of all this, this was personal, it really matters. We can live with the economic damage. It'll be annoying, but we can live with it. If we're separated in a more profound way than that, it's a tragedy we'll all feel.